For nearly 8 centuries, Rome had stood unbroken. Empires had risen and collapsed beyond its borders. Kingdoms had shattered, cities had burned, and entire peoples had vanished from history. Yet through it all, Rome endured. To its citizens, the city was not merely a place of stone and streets. It was an idea, a promise that order could be imposed on chaos, that law could tame violence, that civilization itself had a center. Rome was eternal. The fall of cities was something that happened to others, to distant peoples on the edges of the world, to barbarians and rebels who lived beyond the reach of Roman order. Rome itself was untouchable, protected by its walls, its legacy, and its memory. Then, in the summer of the year 410, the unthinkable happened. For 3 days, Rome was looted by foreign soldiers. Its palaces were violated. Its streets echoed with screams. Its people were slaughtered, enslaved, or left homeless. Temples and monuments that had stood for centuries were stripped bare. The eternal city was no longer eternal. This is not the story of a single battle or a sudden collapse. It is the story of how confidence turned into complacency, how power rotted quietly from within, and how the greatest city on earth discovered that it was no longer feared. This is the story of the sack of Rome. At its height, the Roman Empire ruled over nearly a quarter of the world's population. Its roads stretched across continents, binding provinces together with stone and discipline. Its laws shaped daily life from Britain to Egypt, from Spain to the Euphrates. Roman currency fueled trade, Roman armies enforced order, and Roman culture defined what it meant to be civilized. Rome was not simply a capital city. It was the axis around which the world revolved. Yet by the 4th century, the empire was already changing in subtle but profound ways. The center of political power had drifted eastward. Emperors no longer ruled from Rome itself, but from Milan, Ravenna, or Constantinople. These cities were closer to the frontiers, closer to the real threats facing the empire. Rome remained wealthy and prestigious, but it was no longer the seat of command. The Senate still met, the monuments still towered, the people still lived among the ruins of greatness. But decisions were being made elsewhere. The legions that once defined Roman power were thinner now. Recruitment had declined as population fell and enthusiasm waned. Increasingly, Rome relied on barbarian mercenaries, men who fought not for the idea of Rome, but for pay, land, or survival. Still, Romans believed in their own myth. Rome had been sacked before, by the Gauls centuries earlier, but that humiliation belonged to a distant, almost legendary past. In living memory, no foreign army had breached its walls. Rome believed itself untouchable. Beyond Rome's borders, the world was shifting. The late Roman world was an age of movement. Entire peoples migrated across Europe, pushed westward by war, hunger, and pressure from other tribes. The old frontiers no longer held firm. Rivers and walls that once marked the edge of civilization became porous. Among these migrating peoples were the Goths. Originally from beyond the Danube, the Goths had been drawn into the Roman world decades earlier. Some had crossed the empire's borders as refugees, fleeing the advance of the Huns. Others had been recruited as soldiers, settled on Roman land in exchange for military service. On paper, they were Roman subjects. In reality, they were outsiders. They were often underpaid, mistreated, and despised by Roman officials. Promises of land and security were delayed or broken. Hunger and resentment spread through Gothic communities living under Roman rule. From this world emerged a leader named Alaric. Alaric was not a wild barbarian chieftain. He had been trained in Roman military traditions. He had served in Roman armies. He understood Roman politics and Roman weakness. More than anything, Alaric wanted legitimacy. He sought recognition as a Roman commander, a title, land for his people, a place within the imperial system. Rome refused him. In 395 AD, the Roman Empire was formally divided for the final time. The East, ruled from Constantinople, was wealthy, urbanized, and protected by strong walls and a functioning bureaucracy. The West was poorer, more rural, and far more vulnerable. Its emperor was Honorius. Honorius was young, inexperienced, and deeply insecure. He ruled not from Rome, but from the fortified city of Ravenna, surrounded by marshes, difficult to attack, and far removed from the people he governed. Honorius feared rivals more than enemies. He trusted courtiers more than generals. Decisions were slow, cautious, and often paralyzed by internal politics. As Alaric and the Goths moved through the Balkans and into Italy, Rome's response was hesitant and confused. There were moments when the Goths could have been stopped. There were moments when compromise might have avoided disaster. But Rome hesitated. An empire that once crushed rebellion with ruthless efficiency now debated while its enemies advanced. In 408 AD, Alaric arrived at Rome's gates. The city was unprepared. Rome's population was immense, perhaps close to 1 million souls, but it depended entirely on grain shipments from North Africa. When Alaric cut off supply routes, famine followed with terrifying speed. Food disappeared from the markets, prices soared beyond reach. The poor starved first, then the middle classes. Ancient sources describe desperation spreading through the streets. Families sold their possessions for scraps of food. Some reportedly turned to cannibalism. Still, Rome refused to surrender. Negotiations dragged on. Alaric demanded gold, silver, and recognition. Rome paid enormous ransoms, stripping temples and statues to meet his demands. Yet even as gold flowed from the city, the empire refused to grant Alaric a permanent settlement. Rome was trying to buy time. Time it did not have. As Rome starved, its leaders turned against one another. Political rivalries paralyzed decision-making. Generals were executed or exiled out of fear they might challenge imperial authority. Loyalty became suspect. Competence became dangerous. The most catastrophic decision came when Roman authorities ordered the massacre of the families of barbarian soldiers serving in the imperial army. They feared betrayal. Instead, they ensured it. Thousands of Gothic soldiers deserted the Roman ranks and joined Alaric. Men who had once defended the empire now marched against it. Rome was no longer collapsing from invasion alone. It was committing suicide. By the year 410, patience had run out. Alaric returned to Rome for the third time. The city's defenses were weak, its people exhausted, its leadership absent. Emperor Honorius remained safe in Ravenna, unwilling or unable to intervene. Negotiations failed. On the night of August 24th, the gates of Rome were opened. Whether through betrayal, bribery, or sheer desperation, no one knows for certain. What is known is this: for the first time in nearly 8 centuries, a foreign army marched into Rome. The sack of Rome lasted 3 days. By later standards, it was restrained. Alaric had no interest in destroying the city completely. But to the Roman mind, the sack was an unimaginable horror. Palaces were looted. Senators were killed or fled. Priceless treasures accumulated over centuries vanished in hours. Slaves and captives were driven from their homes in chains. Churches offered refuge to the terrified. Many were spared, reinforcing the growing power of Christianity. Pagan temples were stripped bare. The old gods seemed silent. Rome's streets echoed with screams and prayers. The eternal city had been violated. When news spread, the world reeled. Saint Jerome wrote from Bethlehem that he felt the entire world collapse. Pagans blamed Christianity for abandoning the ancient gods. Christians argued the sack proved that earthly power was meaningless. The psychological damage was profound. Rome had fallen, and if Rome could fall, nothing was safe. Alaric did not live long after his victory. He died suddenly, buried beneath a river according to legend, his grave lost forever. But the damage he had done could not be undone. Rome would never fully recover. Though emperors continued to rule in the West, authority was shattered. Provinces drifted away. Local strongmen replaced imperial officials. The idea of a united Western Empire slowly dissolved. In 476 AD, The last Western Roman emperor would be deposed. But the true end came earlier. The sack of 410 was the moment everyone realized the empire was mortal. Rome did not fall in a single day. It fell in confidence, in unity, in belief. The sack of Rome was not merely a military defeat, it was a psychological wound from which the Western Empire never healed. The moment when an ancient civilization understood that its age had passed. Rome still stands today. Its ruins still whisper of greatness. But after 410, Rome was no longer the center of the world. It was a memory, and memories, no matter how powerful, cannot hold an empire together.